Gridco. The IES, however, says Gridco must explain to the taxpayer and consumer on the cause of the power trip at the Pistia to Obuasi transmission line that resulted in other trips in the system. Well, we have on the phone lines now researcher of the IES, Fritz Moses, to give us further explanations of this latest release. Good evening, Fritz. Hello, good evening. All right, so it looks like we don't have Fritz now. We'll definitely get back and get some more explanations to this latest development. Now, the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors says the National Petroleum Authority, NPA, in 2019 revoked the licenses of 5 bulk oil distribution companies, BDCs, in the country, bringing the total number of BDCs to 30 from the previous number of 41 BDCs in 2016. The 5 BDCs whose licenses were revoked, according to the Ghana Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors in its 2019 Ghana Petroleum Industry Report, include LIB Ghana Limited, Imperial Energy Limited, MEMS Charge Energy Limited, Rochelle Energy Limited, and WI Energy Limited. The revocation of the license CBOD, that's the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution Companies, further explained in its report, was due to the inability of the BDCs involved to pay their annual license fees of $400,000. Well, let's move on to our main story today. And Ghana, early this month, took delivery of its first floating regasification unit to be operated by the Tema LNG Terminal Company. It is Sub-Saharan Africa's first floating regasification unit and the second in Africa aside Egypt. Latest reports indicate that the Tema LNG terminal will in the coming weeks receive its first import of LNG as it commences full operation by the end of March 2021. Unfortunately, the facility has come under severe criticism, with the Institute of Energy Security saying it is a misplaced priority and wasteful. Let's first recap the concerns of some other stakeholders. The Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, ASEP, Ben Boache, with regards to importing gas from external sources to regasify in the country.
I think you will realize that we are a gas producer. We have 3 fields that are producing oil and gas. And ENI alone produces a minimum of 180 million standard cubic feet, which is a contracted volume of gas. So what that means is that once that gas is produced, whether we use it or not, we have to pay for it. And for the past 2.5 years, Ghana has been paying for significant volumes of that gas that we did not use. So if you are paying for a gas that you are not using, your best or first option will be to be able to utilize that volume of gas before you think about importing any other volume from outside. So that is the concern we raise in that report. So we see an arrangement to bring in LNG, and in our estimation, it is going to be an additional expenditure on our books or GMPC's books, because there is no way the current trend can predict consumption of additional volume from an imported source. What even surprises us is that in the past 3 years, we've been having significant conversation about this excess gas that is coming on stream, and nobody listens, right? And we are now being told that it is too late in the day to even cancel the LNG that is coming on stream.
Yes,
right?
but Ben, before you continue with that, you are aware that government has an ambitious plan to industrialize, and for the fact that we have the Ghana Integrated Aluminum, company coming up. We have other plans, other projects coming up. This will need significant usage of power. And so we can't continue to say that, it's an excess power and it's still going to go waste. Did the report consider that?
These are the kind of flowery language that politicians use to cause us significant harm. And we can track that across our history. and you will find that they say these things, they don't do it. If you bring in the gas, you should have the plants ready to consume it. Because every month you are paying in excess of $20 million. If your integrated aluminum project will come up 2-3 years, you can't continue to pay $20-30 million every month waiting for that plant.
Also, that was Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boachi, who criticized the implementation of this LNG floating regasification unit in the country. And he's saying that importing gas at this time, when local sources, we have so much gas, is not too good. Before we go to the response by the gas off-taker, let's get to our first story, where the Institute of Energy Security is saying that it has noted with concern the increasing rate at which Ghana's transmission grid collapses, resulting in several interruptions in power supply to homes, businesses, and other places. We've been joined on the phone lines by researcher of the IES, Fritz Moses. Now, Fritz, good evening.
Good evening, Emmanuel, and good evening to your listeners.
All right, so what exactly are you saying by this latest release? You think something untoward is happening to Gridco?
All right, so Emmanuel, once again, thank you. So essentially, what we are calling for to be done with our latest releases is in relation to the power crisis that we have been experiencing. We think that although Gridco has been coming out sometimes to speak on the issues that as these happen, they haven't been forthright, especially with what happened yesterday when we had a total shutdown of the national grid. We think that although yes, we agree with them that the lines in Pristia to Asaase had it's really the tripping that causes to affect the other transmission lines on the grid. We think that there hasn't been in communication on what exactly caused it in that line, because it's essential for us to understand the process and where we are coming from to know that these are the issues that are happening. But then again, also we think that per our knowledge or what we know in relation to such happenings is that when it happens, you would see bulk consumers like the mines and other bulk consumers being taken off the grid in order to phase out or schedule a shutdown for the entire system so that it can come back at the time when it has been entirely fixed. But then we didn't see it happening for when our analysis or our checks, we see that the power or the transmission lines from Pristia to Asaase went off at around 1:46 p.m. yesterday. Okay. But then within the period 1:46 p.m. to about 2:10 when we saw the lights go off, we haven't heard from Gridco what happened or what was going on. Because what happened was it was the transmission grid or the transmission lines in Pristia caused the other DSPs in the country to collapse, especially in the middle belt.
All right, thank you very much, Fritz Moses, for that explanation. The Fritz Moses is a researcher at the Institute of Energy Security. All right, so let's now take our main response or the interview of the day from the CEO of the LNG off-taker, the GNPC. He's going to be the guest tonight. He'll be making some clarifications to the LNG facility and take us through all that we need to know about the importance of this LNG commodity to the country's economic development.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Energy 101 on Asaase Radio. In the first place, what exactly is LNG?
Thank you, Emmanuel. I'm very glad that your station has taken the first step or the initiative to reach out to GNPC to get more insight into this particular issue. I do agree with you that there's a bit of public misunderstanding and perhaps misinformation about this whole project. In the first place, it's a good starting point. What is LNG? That is for short, LNG. It means liquefied natural gas. The gas that is produced from the fields generally other what we call associated gas, where we are producing oil, and then there will be call it an additional product or byproduct, which is gas, natural gas, as is happening in the Jubilee fields and the tin field, Jubilee and tin fields. There's also the non-associated gas, which is what is being produced from the Sankofa field by ENI Vitol. There is an essentially a gas field. But even that, they also have a bit of crude oil, but the focus is not really crude oil. The whole project is about taking the gas out, but in the process, you get food oil, and it's in commercial quantities, obviously. They've taken steps to produce that one as well. So this the source is really either associated or non-associated gas. The gas comes in, if it's coming even whichever form, it contains a bit of liquids. Okay. So in the Jubilee field, the gas comes to Ghana Gas Atuabo plant in a wet form. That's the way it was designed, the installation was designed. And at our Atuabo plant, the liquids is processed and the liquids are extracted. Liquids is also some form of fuel, crude oil, either condensate or crude oil.
So I got you right. It means the gas that we obtain from the various fields come in liquid form.
Well, yes, it comes in liquid form, and then we process it. You see, I was trying to explain, the Jubilee and Tame fields is what we call wet gas. It comes in liquid form. In wet form, it comes in wet form, and it cannot be used as such. So you need to extract the liquids to make it a bit dry and then gaseous, and then it's still gaseous, make it dry, and then push it through the lines for us to use. The one from Sankofa, the configuration is that on the FPSO coming command, the installation is that they extract the liquids on the FPSO. So then that's dumped into the oil production taking place there. And then it comes dry. So there it moves out of the manifold in dry form and it comes to the pipeline through Zanzule or wherever it is. And it comes onshore facility. Yes, and it comes to Takrady. Okay. The liquefied natural gas is indeed also such similar gas, but it's being brought and transported over long distances. So when they produce the gas, they liquefy it through a process called liquefaction or whatever they call it, scientific. Okay. So they turn it into liquid, and they do so because it's not easy transporting large volumes of gas in its raw form on vessels. So you put it into liquid, and when you do that, you are able to compress it and therefore be in a position to transport large volumes on marine vessels. That's a real difference. And then when it comes...
That's what we call regasification.
No, that is liquefaction over there, and it's put into liquid. That's why I said, then it's turned into liquefied natural gas, and it's transported. It will come to the installation we are doing in Tema, where it will be regasified before it can be used in the power plants. So you see, it's quite interesting. Somebody will say that, then why is it not that you are not taking the Atuabo one and liquefying it and bringing it? No, they extract, so it comes in the dry form and it is straight, it can be used in the plants. But this one, we are bringing it because we see a deficit. And if you have the deficit and the fields are in Mexico, you can't do pipeline from there and bring gas here.
Is there no situation where we can have the liquefied natural gas itself from the belly of the sea?
No, it's not. It's not. You can have wet gas. It's not liquefied. Liquefied is compressed. Okay. So that, you can maybe whatever, it can be transferred. I was looking at the literature, maybe 60 times what could have been transported is that because it's compressed and put on the vessels and come. And when it comes here, it's for the transportation, because the transportation that is made is turned into liquefied for it to come in. And then when it comes, then we push it through the regasification plants, the terminal we put there, to convert it to the form that can be used in the generating plants. Okay. So it appears to be something like a reverse, but it's necessary because we don't have enough gas. That's the essence of bringing the distillery. Or even if you want to have fuel security, so that if the fuels are not producing, there's another means of bringing the gas in here. So we use the liquefaction process and convert it to liquid, and then bring so that you can transport large volumes over this thing. Now I know that even in some areas they try to lay pipelines to, but that should be over a short period, and the pipelines are very expensive if you want to transport it through lines in liquefied form. When it gets to our destination here, because the wet type is not what is used in there, but in the generating line, we will regasify and bring it back to the dry form for it to be used. Wow. So that's a real difference.
Very well. So what are the basic use of this LNG apart from fine power?
Yeah, really power, but gas in any form can be used for fertilizer, can be used for chemicals, other things. Polyproducts, many other things. But for us, primarily, we are using this for power generation, primarily. And to me, that is what is going to be used. You see, you're looking at power generation, but what we know is the bigger plants like maybe Ameri, like Asogli, but they are industrial small plants. I worked in Tama Oil, I was the MD. We do power generation on site, and we fire the plants with liquid fuels. Sometimes gas oil, or heavy fuel oil and generate power there. All this can be replaced by using replaced with gas, the liquefied gas, which will be pushing through once we process in here. And the advantage is quite obvious. It's cheaper and cleaner, and therefore is environmentally friendly, more friendly than the liquid fuels that we are aware of. And cheaper in the sense sometimes can be as much as 30% cheaper than ordinary fuel like crude oil or gas oil or heavy fuel. There are various types. All these things tend to be more expensive than LNG, apart from the fact that it's cleaner, and therefore for climate change purposes, environmental considerations, the preference to the natural gases in whatever form.
So do we really have demand domestically for this gas, especially for power or other uses?
Yeah, there is. I mean, that's what the issue has been. People say that there will be too much gas on the market. I can tell you, over the last 3 years, gas offtake from our fields has increased significantly. I think about 2019, it was about 211 million standard cubic feet per day usage. Last year, 2020, was about 296 on the average usage, millions standard cubic feet per day usage. And the recent uptake for a few months is well over 300. That's for power generation. If we had enough gas, they won't bring gas from Nigeria. We've been bringing gas from Nigeria via the West African gas pipeline into the country to be used by VRA for power generation. If that should tell you that we don't have enough gas locally, maybe people are saying that, but if we have the Nigerian source, why are you bringing in this one? Yeah, we're bringing this one for a number of reasons. One, having the LNG in the fuel mix is an advantage. For example, sometimes the line from Nigeria is blocked or is mutilated, and there cannot be any flow from Nigeria to Ghana, so the supply is cut. Even our own fields, for a greater part of last year, cane field was virtually down. Jubilee will produce, but sometimes when they up to a certain level, their plants trip. And even the almighty Sankofa project itself, they have their own upset conditions. But if you have LNG also coming, then when this thing happens, there'll be another source of fuel supply. And even recently, we experienced a problem with the fields, and for that matter, we had to switch quickly to fuel oil for usage by Asaase. Many of the plants will have, they are dual-fired. They have the liquid fuels as well as the gas. So that the use for LNG is there. So it's all about demand-supply balance and how we manage that. And also about being prepared to meet the demand requirements. You see, higher gas consumption in the country is a signal, it's a measure of economic development, economic activity, economic growth. And that is what is, to me, that is what is happening. They're using more gas in place of the liquid fuels. At the aggregate level, it's beneficial to government because liquid fuels tend to be more expensive than gas. Moreover, this LNG that GNPC has worked on with a partner, the other stakeholders, is such that it's maybe a better price, more competitive price than our Sankofa gas and the gas from Nigeria.
So let's pricing, but tell us about the structure itself of this LNG that you are.
Oh yeah, the facility. Yeah, I mean, in the whole of Africa, it's only Egypt which has got an LNG installation. The whole of Africa. The next one is going to be the Ghana one, and so it shows that we are advancing. The LNG has got the facility has got about three main. Maybe I'll say a main component, which is the floating regasification unit. That is where the liquid listing is put and then converted back into gas and then pushed through the pipelines for wherever distributed. Then there's also the floating storage capacity unit. We need that because it's a continuous process. You're not just, a ship is not coming and then be standing there. It offloads and it goes back. It's being processed, another one comes. So it's going to be an interesting operations flow. It comes in and goes. So we have that storage as well. Then a whole set of marine pipelines from the sea. It's in the sea. It's not on land. That's why they call floating storage, floating gasification, regasification unit. They are all floating on the sea. And then you have the breakwater, which has been done to ensure that ships can anchor, to offload. And then the set of pipelines working through, and then metering stations so that we know what volumes have left the installation and things like that. So it's an interesting, complex, sophisticated terminal which is being built in Ghana.
What is the capacity?
Well, the storage unit is about 600 million standard cubic feet of gas storage.
Per day?
Yeah, that's the storage.
Okay.
Per day, the usage is about, our contractual volume is about maximum about 200. If I look at what will constitute take-up place, about 200 million scarves, million standard cubic feet of gas. That is the installation capacity, but it can be scaled up, scalable. There's flexibility, and therefore, if we need to process more, it can be done. That's why I say if you have 600 units, million standard cubic, it means Perhaps we can even process the whole 600.
Can it suffice for the daily demand of gas for the country?
Oh yes, if the demand for Ghana is over 300, so that for now what we contracted will be not enough. Will not be enough. Ours is supplementary. We are adding on to what we have to meet current demand, and then the way we've done it, you scale it up so that as demand grows, more gas can be pushed through our system. So I think that there's a bit of flexibility on the plant, and the technology they are using is quite advanced. Of course, if you have someone like Shell as a stakeholder, as a seller of the product to us, Shell has got higher standards so far as LNG is concerned. It controls 30% of the world global LNG business. So it's not any Nino in a business. It's very experienced, and then it means the installations have really met their standards, HSE, health, safety, and environmental standards, as well as all the technical standards that you can think of.
But that in itself is one concern of IES and other stakeholders.
That's what?
That's why Shell, because earlier they heard of Gazprom and then Rosneft, now Shell. So
yes, we started our first GSA, gas sales and purchase agreement with Gazprom, a Russian entity. Well, every company undergoes changes. They had a bit of their own internal thing, and they could not continue the project. That time, some serious work has been done, and Russian company Rosneft came and replaced them. You know, with all these agreements, they are tentative. You try to move along and make sure conditions precedent, certain obligations are met. Rosneft had a bit of problem with a terminal company which is doing the facility, and they couldn't meet certain conditions by a certain date. But before then, Rosneft itself was talking to Shell to be a supplier of gas for processing, to be one of their suppliers. So once Shell saw the opportunities, they even reached out to us. Not only Shell, Total even reached out to us. The big boys were all interested. Perhaps people thought this project will happen. We were all interested, they rushed. But we found the Shell flexibility to be advantageous, and I quickly jumped onto it. You know, there was concern about what volumes to bring in, whether there won't be excess gas as is being touted now. And with Shell trying to go through the whole process again, we managed to stagger supplies. First year, 75 million standard cubic feet per day. Second year, 125 million standard cubic feet per day. Third year, 150. Fourth year, 175. Before you hit 200 by the fifth year. So, you know, we are building demand gradually.
No issue of take or pay.
No, the 75, if we don't take that, we take or pay concern. But we, knowing, you know, as we were developing the project and inquiries were coming, we realized that many countries even want LNG raw. They want to take it and perhaps go and regasify through their small plants. There are containers which have got regasified units, regasification units in containers. So I don't even live in containers. By the time maybe they get to their destination, they will have converted it. You see, so we've seen a very big, potentially big demand in even LNG export in the country, in the sub-region. The first to contact us for LNG was Satomi. I was very surprised. So the South African company doing their power generation ahead of the project, they quickly came. COVID, stalled the process, but they've reactivated it. They want 21 million scraps a day to be shipped to them. They will bring their vessels and take the thing from here and send. From here to Satomi is not too long, so they can easily take and go away. Benin has come. Benin, like Ghana, gets gas from Nigeria through the West African gas pipeline, that has proved to be very unreliable. And for 7 years, the whole project was under force majeure. They give you answer when they have. And I've told people that with even Dangote's fertilizer coming up in Nigeria, the factory coming up, God knows whether we'll get any gas to buy for that purpose. So Benin, knowing the erratic supply, has reached out to us to buy, so that we put it back in the West African gas pipeline to them. Of course, we won't sell at a loss. I'll give it to them, whatever price, and then they can do their transportation through the pipeline, and it goes back to them. That's Benin. There's Togo request. We've got inquiries from even landlocked Burkina, Mali, and Niger, where they want to truck the LNG, trucking it, which means they can go in containers, specialized containers, they take it and truck. We don't have the infrastructure yet, but in a few months it can be developed so that they can get their supplies. Sierra Leone is a small market, but they want it. Guinea, they want it for their mines. And even in our own country, the mines are considering switching from gas oil to LNG. Of course, I'll make sure that the price is better than...
I'll let you know about this, the pricing regime.
No, we'll come to it. Yeah. So the demand for export to the sub-region and even beyond is quite huge. I've seen a Chinese company which wants 100 million scraps a day. So wow, if they want to take it, we are talking to all of them. So eventually we'll process little for Ghana's use, and the rest will go in the form of LNG coming from the Tema terminal. GNPC will make some money for being the anchor for the project. In terms of pricing, all that I can say is that the LNG price as of now is cheaper than the one from Nigeria, cheaper than the one from Sankofa. The ENI, Little one, everybody is there. The data is there. You don't run away. And we are even thinking of fixing the price, for a period, say 2 years, and then we'll fix the price. The price cannot be static. There's this thing called, gas price is linked to crude oil price as an index called Henry Hub's, index. So there's a way of determining the price. And so if crude oil prices go up, it means it also go up. If it comes, so you can't have it. But to have stability, we're looking at fixing price. And are people here afraid of hedging? I would say that no, I'll buy insurance so that my price is stable for a period, and then continue the business to make sure I can guarantee buyers a kind of a stable price for a period, for a certain period before maybe I revise it and things like that. We are working, but all I can say is cheaper than Nigeria, cheaper than Sankofa. People say that Jubilee and 10, yes, but those are, the initial says foundation gas is free. Well, foundation gas will be exhausted in about 2 years' time, so we've got to pay for it. Yeah, when we did on 10, a more commercial this, and that was $2.3 per million standard cubic feet. And that one is just the commodity price. Now you have to pay for the pipeline price and handling cost. And then if you pass it through the line from Takoradi to Tema, there's also another charge from the WAC.
But it is what Shell bringing aboard, inclusive of...
It includes everything. Transportation, commodity price, and regasification price are all. And all told is cheaper than Nigeria, cheaper than this thing. And I believe that even when the foundation volumes are finished and we are selling gas from Atuabo to Takoradi, then to Tema, it could even end there more expensive than...
We're supposed to be getting a lot of gas from Sankofa to the extent that this take or pay agreement is affecting us. What is preventing that gas to be regasified?
No. You see, we are bringing gas from Sankofa. We all know that Sankofa gas is expensive. It's the most expensive gas maybe the whole world. Yes. I mean, so far, unless somebody gives me any data suggesting otherwise, is a non-associated gas, and it's very expensive because installation was done purposely for that. They have other arguments about pricing, but that is the truth as of now. If I have an energy combination and I use gas for power, and I can limit what I take from Sankofa, I will do it, because then my average will become lower. There are people who argue that the Ghana component in Sankofa should be given free, so the average will be lower. Yes, you give it, but artificial, you know it's a subsidy. You know it's a subsidy. You are not, we need to be honest, it's a subsidy. If you give the Ghana component in a year, the subsidy is about $124 million or so. You know, so we need to be very careful how we argue that. But for me, I look at the economics for the contractor. The contractor's portion is maybe 131 million standard cubic feet per day. That one will be priced at the right price and will be taken by Ghana. Then they say, oh, then we've lost ours. No. The agreement says whatever component you defer in a particular year, it can be taken within 5 years. So if I didn't take something in 2020, I can take it in 2021, 2022, up to about 2025. So if my demand is increasing, then I can go back and claw back what I didn't take, because that is the kind of component. You see, so people just say that it's there, why not take that one? We are doing economic analysis. If the composition for the LNG is cheaper, I want it to come in. It gives me fuel security for power generation. It gives me a cheaper commodity price. And then it comes to add up to what the average should be better. If we think that different Ghana commonwealth will make Sankofa average cheaper, for me that's an illusion, because seriously, it's a subsidy element, and we need to recognize that. Okay. And we have done the analysis.
Now, are there any cost-related issues with this contract?
Cost-related issues?
I mean, like, what's the cost to be incurred by GNPC in this project?
The project
is it funding it?
The project, this Tema LNG project, is costing $400 million to build. GNPC's contribution is $0. We are not paying anything. It's a private sector led project. Ours being the anchor corporation to take the gas. We are the national gas aggregator as of now. So we are taking it and then selling it.
So you're not investing in anything?
No, we haven't invested in anything. All that we are doing is to put a standby letter of credit to guarantee payment for what we take. But that one, whether you import crude oil, you import gas, you import fuel oil, you are required to put a letter of credit in place. So naturally, if we are buying them, yes, they will take a letter of credit. That is our contribution to the project. Obviously, I will recover my LC charges and also try and make a little profit. But all the same, it will be cheaper than Nigeria and cheaper than South Africa.
What about capacity? I mean, do you have the capacity, or are you building capacity to handle the management of the facility? Because I heard there was a Spanish company that was involved in managing.
See, the facility for now is not owned by us. It's owned by Helios, Blistered Energy, and Gasfield. And then Shell is a supplier of the community. Yeah, they own the facility. So, of course, they bring their own technical people to run it. But we've got an arrangement with them. At the expiration of the duration of the facilities will revert to GNPC. The breakwaters will revert to Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority. And the floating regasification unit, the floating storage unit, and the pipelines and the metering station will revert to GNPC. I envisage a situation where GNPC will do perhaps a joint venture with GPHA to continue to run the project. Because it will still have useful life, or you may replace something and it will still continue to work. By that time, our own technical people have built the capacity. So we are going to do this capacity building alongside with the people as they operate. So there's a bilateral agreement between GNPC and the terminal operator, so that we can get the benefits of these benefits of the facility. So the good thing, people should see that we are not putting any money in it. We are only backstopping it with the LC to let the business flow. It's only when we buy and don't pay that the LC will be at risk. But we must be responsible. We must pay, and then at the end of it all, the facility will revert to us. I don't think GPHA, Ports and Harbour Authority, will demolish the breakwaters. We will find a comfortable joint venture or partnership with them and get these installations running.
Now, were there similar projects under the NDC administration for which maybe proposals were submitted?
Oh, yeah. When I took over as chief executive of GNPC, I think there were 3 projects. One by a company called Quantum, another by a company called Kahil, and then another company called West African Gas Limited, WAGL, from Nigeria. The WAGL one had received parliamentary approval, but the other ones were in the preparatory stages, so we were able to do away with the projects, discontinue them without any liability to GNPC. The Kahil one, the WAGL one, I think they took them into arbitration. I know they have some minimal award, but if you look at the gain to Ghana by comparing what is coming from the Tema LNG in terms of regasification cost and what we're paying under the other one, West African Gas, I think nominal terms, it's about $663 million in savings over the 10-year duration of the WAGL agreement. In present value terms, are 408. So even if government is being asked to pay penalty of 80 million, at the aggregate level, the country is gaining, as it were, over 500 million.
So those contracts have been cancelled?
Yes, they have been cancelled. They have been cancelled. So and that one, their total capacity was about 580 million standard cubic feet per day. Ours is maximum 225, and we scale it up in such a way that it will flow gradually for about 5 years before you get to the 90% take-or-pay level of about 200 million standard cubic feet per day.
Now, with all these explanations, I understand you clearly, but the IES think that these investments are wasted. Are they funded? Are these arguments?
I haven't read their statement. I think I saw it in passing on the net, and I'm going to have a good reading of it. What I would say is that perhaps they need a better education of the project. They need to be provided with relevant information, maybe as I'm giving you, if they care to come. They haven't spoken to us, and they put a release. They are not a media house, so I wouldn't take a swipe at them. But as professionals, I expect them to come. As a think tank, I guess, I expect them to come so that we can walk them through them. And I'm sure if they listen to this interview, they may hit back. But what are they going to hit back? I'm not selling 225 million from day one. I'm selling 75. The next year, I add 50. The following year, I add another 25, another 25. Before, by the 5th year, I get to 200. And I'm saying, I've said it time and again, if within 5 years we can't grow this market, we can't unearth all the domestic potential, we cannot do all the export, we cannot develop the needed infrastructure to make use of this the volumes of gas, then I'm afraid as a country we have a problem. I'm very certain that our new minister will coordinate the institutions, GNPC, Ghana Gas, Energy Commission, and all the potential players who want to trade in this business to come together and make sure that we have a resolution. Let me take the first year. VRA takes about 75 million scraps from Nigeria. Well, I would say perhaps now on a best endeavor basis. If they decide to scale it down to 30, because sometimes they do 20, 30, 40, depending, I can straight away put 45 million of the 75 to VRA. We are left with what? Pardon? 30. The little industries, I know AXA is connecting its pipeline, converted its plant, the fuel, about 35% of it, into to use gas. And that will use 20 million scraps a day. So that's an additional demand for gas coming on stream. By the time they convert their plant, they need about 60 to 70 million scraps per day to be able to fire their plants on gas. Maybe the wisest to do is to have a combination of liquid fuel and gas. Not only them, there are people who are interested in trading in CNG, the compressed natural gas, that can be used in our vehicles for other industrial uses, which can be distributed by trucks. It opens new business for those who want to do trading in gas. As AXA is constructing its pipeline to join the VRA distribution terminal, naturally, we'll be putting in other, other companies may follow suit. My own Tema Oil Refinery may want to buy gas by connecting their pipeline, and it's going to be cheaper to them to use for power generation than using maybe gas oil or heavy fuel oil or some other type of liquid oil, fuel oil. So the demand must be unlocked, and that will require a concerted effort. Maybe we've been a bit slow, but we have about 4 months, the rest of March, April, May, and perhaps June to go into first commissioning commercial operation of the plants. Is a long time.
Now, speaking of supply, I know Ake is coming. I know Springfield is trying to do something on exploration, and I know you have plans for the 10 basin, which may come with gas. Have you considered future of?
Yes, we have. We have. If we have associated gas coming, it tends to be cheaper. That can be put into fertilizer production. It's a non-associated gas, which is like sulfur, which is very expensive, and you cannot build any fertilizer or other petrochemical plants on that kind of cost. You can't break even. You understand? There will be no point in government subsidizing people to take it cheaper for us to pay expensive for it for them to do other industries. But if, for instance, Springfield can bring associated gas, it will be cheaper. It may not need to come to Tema. It can be hijacked somewhere in Jomo or somewhere in Tuabo for a fertilizer plant, which the government is developing the petroleum hub. That will require inputs of gas and other petroleum products, so that you can do fertilizer there, you can do other petrochemicals, ethanol plants and things like that. But that will require cheaper gas. That's Springfield, if only it will come as quickly as possible. Now, talk about Jubilee and 10. With their current configuration, unless you put another, this is wet gas, unless you put another processing plant in by Ghana Gas in Atuabo or somewhere around the area, they can't send any excess gas to shore, because the Ghana Gas plant has a capacity of about a maximum of 150 million standard cubic feet per day. Even they process less. So even if you produce 200, 250, you can only send only 150 there. So that will require building another plant. But the economics has to be looked at carefully. Will you have enough gas to feed into the plant from the two fields? You mentioned Ake. Ake is using and then something they call WAG technology, water alternating gas something technology, which re-ingests the gas that they produce into the field, to the wells, to produce more, enhance their oil recovery.
Okay,
so with AKE and AGM, at least I've been involved, I know there will be no gas. And even if there will be gas, they talk about ExxonMobil, they are exploring. From what I've read so far and experience, exploration to production, unless you do maybe fast track, 7 years, whatever, but it's between 7 and 10 years. So even though AKE is at a stage now, they need about 4 years to be able to produce. Unless, of course, maybe there's some magic somewhere to shorten that time.
During which period we still need the gas from the LNG.
You need it.
Regasification.
You need it. You see, that's what people are not realizing. People have been a bit short-termist. But I think they are worried about whether we had the right strategy in managing the excess gas. Now, as I've explained to you, we have the right strategy. We minimize flow from ENI, we minimize flow from Nigeria. We have enough for LNG for the first year. By the second year, the domestic, this thing, 10 million from here, 10 million from here. At least I have about 30 million sitting down, which can feed in. I'm not even talking about export. Yeah? If I do the Satome export, 21, there's another company which wants 10. That gives me 30. I add to 41 from the 45 from BRE. I have my 75. If I cut the ENI volumes, restrict them to the contractor volume, that's it. Let's buy their gas because they're entitled to buy, but let's buy what they are entitled to receive, not more, and then substitute with a cheaper gas. When we do that, I don't see that there will be any excess gas in terms of managing the volumes which come into the system. 3 years along the line, I'll sound a prophet. You look for me, and you realize that the LNG will have become a savior of this country, because the demand for power generation alone, if we get cheaper gas, can be very high for export. If some issues about the independent power producers are resolved, so that we can get competitively priced export price for our.
So maybe then you could be assuring the ordinary Ghanaian that in the near future their bills could come.
Well, I'm not a government. I'm not the energy minister to be able to pronounce on policy. Yeah. But the government is very sensitive in terms of cost of living, and it reflects on what has been done in wartime and electricity. We all concede, and I think they will surely, if we can get cheaper inputs and we improve efficiency, minimize generation losses, minimize transmission losses and things like that, I'm sure we'll be fine.
Do you have final words, or should I take this as a final word?
Well, I would like to say that those who don't understand what is happening should seek information. They should not misinform the public. The GNPC Public Affairs Unit, Sustainability and Stakeholder Relations Division, which is headed by Dr. Kwame Banu, is ready to lead them into the right kind of discussion and information for them to be able to appreciate that we are not being reckless in terms of our decisions. Secondly, we want to assure the country that we will do everything in our power to manage this whole process so that we don't bring any additional cost to government. And on that note, I think I can say that we are very prepared to see the birth, the commissioning of this wonderful project, which will be the second in the whole of Africa, second after Egypt in the whole of Africa.
And that was the CEO of the LNG off-taker, the GNPC, Dr. Kofi Kodua Sapong, who's been spelling out all that we need to know about the LNG usage in the country. I believe he's cleared the misconceptions and all the sticky situations surrounding this LNG and, of course, the Tama LNG terminal, which is supposed to be coming out with its distribution of LNG very soon for national development. And on that note, to draw the curtains down on this evening's edition of Energy 101. Thank you very much for being with me. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. Let's meet again, same time, next Monday for more interesting developments in the world of energy. Have a good evening.